Hello and welcome to my world. In this video I am pleased to announce that this custom Clod Buster is done. And as I said in my previous video, I have decided on a name for it. And from this point forward, this truck will be known as Leviathan. And Leviathan is the name of a mythical, huge sea monster or sea serpent. And I thought that name was appropriate because this truck is much larger than my other Clod Buster and bullhead trucks. So especially with its tires, it's really huge and it sits up really high off the ground. So I thought Leviathan, what a perfect name. I love the way it sounded. And also, as of this filming, there is no other full-scale monster truck named Leviathan. Now there was one several years ago, quite a ways back. It was a Jeep that was called Leviathan, but it was sold to a new owner and that owner has changed the name of it. So at least as of this filming, there is no other Leviathan monster truck, so this is the only one. So, and I love the way that name sounded. That was really cool. So that's always kind of like the last step for all of my custom Clod Busters and bullheads. I always pick the name as one of the last steps to do, and I kind of like when ships were christened back in the day. They would always christen them with the name as soon as the ship was ready to go. So kind of the same thing with my monster trucks. Kind of just hold off on the name during the build process, and as soon as the truck is done, that's when I christen one of my trucks with a new name. So I'm introducing to everybody, this is Leviathan. So in this video, I'm just going to show what the truck looks like now with the body mounted on the chassis, and just talk a little bit about it and the build process and what it was like. And let me show first, one of the things that I like best about this on this truck are the lights. Let me turn those on. The switch is right under here. So let me turn those on. So that's what the Ram lights look like with the Tamiya incandescent light bulb kit in the front there. In the front with one of those circa 1990s era Clod Buster grills. No 4x4x4 on the front of Leviathan's grill. And that sound, I don't know if my microphone on my camera is picking it up, but that sound is the sound of the Novak cooling fan that's on the chassis right above the Super Rooster ESC. And that's one of the things I forgot to show and forgot to mention in my last video when I showed the body. And if you look at that video, there is a red JST little mini plug that's on the red and black wires that are coming out of the 6AA battery holder. And that plug was unplugged in the previous video that I did, and it was just kind of floating around. I forgot to mention about it. And what that plug is for is that connects to the ESC cooling fan. So since the fan is mounted on the chassis, every time I have to remove the body, I have to just unplug that little red JST plug that was floating around in the last video. So let me turn that off. Easy to reach right underneath the fender well there. But I'm very happy with how this truck turned out. It's turned out exactly the way I had imagined a long time ago, and that kind of reminds me that this truck, believe it or not, I was going through some of my records and order history with this truck, and the very first parts I ordered for it were the JPS wheels and the Imex Clod Swamp Dawg tires. And let me turn it this way. And I bought those way back in March of 2025. So as of this filming, that was a little over a year ago. So this truck has been a little over a year of buying parts, putting everything together, making changes, having to buy other little parts here and there in order to put everything together. And so the whole thing took about a full calendar year, or just a little over a full calendar year to get to this point. And it is a good example. This whole process that I've been filming all along the way is kind of a good example of what it's like to build these all custom Clod Busters or bullheads. And that is that they do take a lot of time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And this is the 5th Clod Buster or bullhead that I've built from the ground up like this with all custom parts. And each one took a very long time to get to somewhat finished condition. They're never really ever done. Let me also state that. These things, you're always making little changes in the future, so I'm sure Leviathan will not always be like this. I'm going to make changes here and there along the way in the future, and I'll show those changes on video if I do make any changes to them. But let this just be a lesson to anybody that's planning one of these all custom trucks or thinking about doing it. It's not a ready to run truck, simply put. If you want something fast and easy in the monster truck world, get an LMT, get an X-Max, something like that. You just charge up the batteries, turn it on, and go, and you're done. And these type of trucks are not that. You have to be patient with them. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of thinking, a lot of head scratching that you have to do, and that's all just part of the process. And I would never discourage anybody from doing one of these, though. Absolutely not. Hopefully, I'm not discouraging anybody from doing this, because once you get to this point, you've built something with your own hands that is unlike anybody else's truck in the world. And that is so rewarding in so many levels. But I will admit that it's not for everyone. Okay, one of the things I've noticed during my, say, about 20-year break from being into RC, and particularly RC monster trucks, is that the ready-to-run market, in the hobby RC market, has really exploded during my absence. And it's really kind of surprised me quite a bit. And there's a whole new generation of monster truck fans that is so used to just opening the box, charging up the batteries, and turning on, and there you go, have some monster truck fun. And that's a little bit different compared to what I've done here and what I do with my trucks. So I would never, once again, I would never discourage anybody. I'm not saying that ready to run is bad. It certainly has brought a lot of new fans to the RC monster truck hobby, and that's wonderful. But if you are thinking of doing something similar like this, an all custom from the ground up truck, just be ready for a lot of delays, and a lot of stuff may come up that you never expected to, and you'll have to figure out how to solve those problems on your own. So if you want to avoid those problems, get it ready to run, or keep your Clod Buster stock. If you build the Clod Buster the way Tamiya intended to, everything goes together so perfectly, so smoothly, no issues, no head scratching, no late nights wondering how to solve something. None of those issues come up whatsoever. But if you would like to do one of these trucks, please leave a comment below. If you have any questions, this is the 5th one of these trucks that I've done. And let me just say right now too, of all those trucks, this one probably had the most amount of problems during the assembly process that I had to solve. So, and that even includes Chernobog, even though that truck is much larger and more complex than Leviathan. Still, this one, I don't know, I'm not a superstitious guy at all, but maybe because the black body, in some cultures, black is considered bad luck, so this is the first Clod Buster or bullhead that I've ever built with a black body before. Maybe that put a curse on this truck. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a superstitious kind of guy or anything like that, but who knows? During this whole process, I was wondering when things like a simple light bulb is burned out, and that should not be an issue at all ever. I began to wonder, maybe Leviathan was cursed from the beginning. I don't know. But anyways, is this truck done? Well, I would put done in quotes. As I said, you always make changes on this, on all my custom trucks. I'm always making little changes here and there along the way to them. So I don't think this will be any different with this truck. I'm sure I'm going to make changes. And if so, I will be sure to make a video of those changes. But one thing I'll tell you right now that I will change if the opportunity comes up. Now, keep in mind, I'm not losing sleep over this, but from day one, I always intended for this truck to be like a tribute or a model of something like Bigfoot 5. And I mentioned that in my early videos about this truck. That was always kind of my goal number 1. So I wanted it to have comically huge tires on it. And when it comes to RC, comically huge, ridiculous giant tires. When it comes to monster trucks, basically there's only one tire out there that's so huge it's totally ridiculous, totally impractical, and those are the Imex Jumbo Kong tires. And I always intended for this truck to have Jumbo Kongs on it. And the only thing stopping me from putting them on from day one was that it's really hard to find any machined aluminum wheels that work with Imex Jumbo Kong tires. So that is one change that I definitely would like to make. I'm not losing sleep over it. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, okay, I'm perfectly happy with the Clod Swamp Dawg tires that are on it right now. But I just can't find right now machined aluminum wheels for Jumbo Kong tires. So if anybody out there knows of any place I can get machined aluminum wheels that work with Imex Jumbo Kong tires, please leave a comment below. I am definitely interested in getting a set for Leviathan. But if I do get those, I most definitely will make a video about that. But that will make this thing even taller, even more huge, more comically huge. But that's what Bigfoot 5 is. It's kind of comically huge, kind of absolutely ridiculous, but man, I've always loved that truck ever since I first saw it. One of my biggest concerns when I was first initially planning out this truck was that because I wanted to use huge, giant-sized tires, I always wanted to use a chassis that had a longer wheelbase than the stock Tamiya Clod Buster chassis. But I have always been concerned that the longer wheelbase of the chassis would not line up with the wheelbase of the stock Clod Buster Chevrolet body. And that was something that was just always in the back of my mind, and I just never knew exactly how the wheelbase of the chassis would line up with the wheelbase of the body until I actually got to the very last step in the assembly of this truck, and that was mounting the body onto the chassis. But as you can see from this side view, the longer wheelbase of the chassis actually lines up pretty well with the stock body. So my concerns really were worked out okay. And in case you didn't know, the wheelbase of a vehicle is the distance between the center line of the front wheels or front axle to the center line of the rear axle. And the wheelbase of the body, same thing. Distance from the center line of the front wheel well to the center line of the rear wheel well. And we look at a side view here. You can see that it doesn't quite line up perfectly, although the rear axle does line up better with the rear wheel wells or fenders better than the front. The front looks like it's kind of pushed forward just a tiny bit, but it looks pretty good. The Time Warp chassis has, the way I have it set up anyways, has a 1 inch longer wheelbase than stock. And that's one of the main reasons why I chose the Time Warp chassis, because you can adjust the wheelbase. And when I was first doing some previous videos about the Time Warp chassis, I showed how you can change the mounting points of the suspension ladder bars right here. You have these 4 different holes you can use to change the wheelbase of the truck, and I have them on the longest wheelbase possible. But the wheel wells line up really well with the wheelbase of the chassis. And I was afraid, deathly afraid actually, that this truck would look something like the truck called Equalizer. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but the first generation Equalizer truck built by Gary Cook. It had a Chevy S10 body on it, and the chassis had a very long wheelbase. And as a result, the front axle was pushed really, really far forward. And it was a very successful truck, won a lot of monster truck racing points championships, but it always looked really silly, really weird, actually not silly, but just weird to my eyes. So, but I was afraid that Leviathan in the end would look something like Excalibur, where the wheelbase of the chassis just did not match the wheelbase of the body at all. But as you can see from this view here, at least to my eyes, it looks really good. I'm shocked actually that the wheels and the centers of the axles actually do line up pretty well with the wheel wells of the body. Although it is longer, you can tell a little bit, especially with the front. The rear seems to line up better with the rear wheel wells right here. Those seem to line up much better than the front right here for some reason. For some reason the front looks like it's pushed further forward than the rear. But overall though, I think it looks really good, and those initial concerns that I had, yeah, they turns out didn't need to worry about that. Lots of other things I had to worry about. You'll see those issues that I had in my previous videos, but as far as the wheelbase goes, nope, it looks great to my eyes. One other thing that I forgot to mention in my last video is that I routed the wires for all of the Ram off-road lights through a hole that I drilled right here in the back window, right there. And there's a neoprene grommet in there. But one of the reasons I put the hole there is because it kind of hides all those wires really well, so they don't stick out like a sore thumb. Let's see if I can point to it there. You can kind of see it right there. There we go. And it makes the wires a little bit more concealed compared to if I drilled a hole through the bed floor and routed the wires straight down. So I didn't think that would look too good, so I put the hole right there and right straight through the back window. And I can't take credit for that idea. That was done on the King Clod by the guy at ESP that originally built that truck. So I've always liked how the King Clod had the wires for the off-road lights routed straight through the back window like that, and so that's why I copied that with Leviathan on this truck. So that is the latest addition to my monster truck fleet named Leviathan, and I'm very happy with this truck, how it turned out. Everything in the end took a while to get to this point, but in the end it all worked out just fine, and I could not be more happy with it. And it looks absolutely great with the rest of the trucks in my fleet. And if anybody has any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below. I do read all of the comments for all of my videos, and I welcome any discussion about maybe your project, what your Clod Buster or Bullhead project, what you're working on. If you have questions about it, or if you've run into the same problems that I did while I built Leviathan, maybe you want to bounce some ideas off of me, by all means, I'm happy to provide my 2 cents, but keep in mind they're worth even less than 2 cents, so keep that in mind. Just one guy's opinion when you get my responses to any of your questions. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next video.